The reason we have inflation in the United States, or for that matter anywhere in the world, is because these pieces of paper and the accompanying book entries, or their counterparts in other nations, are growing more rapidly than the quantity of goods and services produced. The truth is, inflation is made in one place and one place only.
Our original U.S. dollar, if we had the original U.S. dollar, would be worth about 35 of today's dollars. So that our dollar has actually lost about 97% of its purchasing power. The $1890 was worth almost exactly the same as a dollar in 1790. Now, the dollar in 1990 was only worth about 7% of the $1890. So during the period when we went off of gold and stopped issuing silver coins, instead of the value of the dollar staying constant, it lost 93% of its value over that century. Since 1990, it's lost 50% of that remaining 7%. That process isn't going to stop. What causes our money to lose purchasing power? Most people are under the impression that it's just a part of the market process, that things are just always becoming more expensive, that it's just natural for this to happen because it's been happening that way ever since. But that's really not the case. And so in some cases, prices are going down. If we look at clothing, computers, electronics, pencils, things of that nature, things that are completely in the marketplace, they're actually going down. There's other areas where the government is heavily involved, where they regulate, they restrict, they have controls, they have taxes, subsidies. Places like education, healthcare, and energy, where the government is so heavily involved, restrictive, regulated, and taxed, those are areas where the prices are going up. Then there's other areas where the government is completely in charge, things like postage stamps, space shuttle missions, and prisons, where prices are skyrocketing across the board. So if we look at the level of government involvement, you can kind of get a rough idea of where prices are going up and where prices are going down. But the reason that prices are going up in general is because of monetary inflation by the government itself. They're creating more money, and when you get too much money in the economy, prices are going to rise overall. Since we had the Federal Reserve System established in the U.S., the amount of money in the U.S. economy has increased 500 times. That's 50,000%. Okay, from $20 billion to $10+ trillion.
This is a place where the power resides to determine how rapidly the amount of money shall increase. That's what would happen to inflation if we stopped letting the amount of money grow so rapidly.
When you think of your checking account, you think of your money is in that bank and I can go get that money anytime I want. But the money isn't really there. We have what's called a fractional reserve banking system. It means basically there's no money in the bank. Banks hold money just like Walmart holds money, just enough to make change. But they don't have a huge storehouse of bank money. Most of their reserves, especially in the big banks, are in electronic format with the Federal Reserve itself. And the system depends upon the idea that not everybody is going to want all their money at the same time. So the modern form of inflation, and this is really the most important thing to understand about money in banking, is that it's an electronic form of inflation. They don't print money nowadays, they just create it electronically. And how the Fed does this is that they buy government bonds from banks, and then they tell the bank, we've got reserves for you at the Fed. You've got an account We've added money to it. We haven't really added money to it. We've just put some more zeros in there. And so that's how they electronically increase the money supply, is just by writing money into existence. So the government spends money, they borrow to pay for it, and then they buy their own government bonds back with an electronic bookkeeping entry.
Inflation is just like alcoholism. In both cases, when you start drinking or when you start printing too much money, the good effects come first. The bad effects only come later. That's why, in both cases, there's a strong temptation to overdo it, to drink too much and to print too much money. When it comes to the cure, it's the other way around. When you stop drinking or when you stop printing money, the bad effects come first and the good effects only come later. That's why it's so hard to persist with the cure.